Hello and welcome to the Business News Summary on Independent Television Abuja. I am Kiru Owuli. Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, and the Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, affirmed that the country's positive growth outlook will be sustained. The Minister and the CBN Governor gave this assurance at a joint press briefing at the end of the 2018 International Monetary Fund and World Bank Spring Meeting in Washington, D.C., United States. Adeosun, who noted that the present growth outlook contrasted with the outlook in 2015, stated that inflation rate was slowing down while the foreign reserves were rising. Expressing optimism on the federal government's sustenance of the growth trajectory, the minister, however, called for vigilance and focus for the country not to fall back into recession. On the state-owned enterprises such as the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, she disclosed that the government will continue to efficiently and effectively manage their costs and plug leakages. On the nation's domestic debt, the minister stated that the government will not aggressively grow the debt. She disclosed that the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme VAD's deadline was extended by 3 months till June the 30th of 2018 due to the appeals from taxpayers for more time to regularize their tax status. The minister confirmed the recovery of the sum of $323 million Abacha fund from the Swiss government into a special account in the Central Bank of Nigeria. The funds, according to her, have been earmarked for the National Social Safety Net program of the government. The Central Bank Governor also reiterated Nigeria's positive growth outlook, noting that a growth of 2.5% has been projected by the International Monetary Fund and World Bank for Nigeria. He disclosed that the country's foreign reserves have risen to $47.93 billion. The administration of the Federal Capital Territory says it is targeting the sum of 146 billion naira from tax in 2018. The Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, FCT Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Abdullahi Atta, disclosed this at the weekend during a chat with newsmen. Corresponding Ikara Atta reports the agency is planning to register all eligible taxpayers in the city and give them tax identification number for the ease to pay tax.
Speaking to journalists, the chairman says the service is targeting to generate the sum of 146 billion naira for the Federal Capital Territory Administration through the introduction of unique taxpayers identification number TIN. To achieve this target, it disclosed that the service is working in concert with various data management agencies and has developed a robust taxpayers database on which unique taxpayers identification numbers were assigned to every taxpayer in the Federal Capital Territory in line with Section 17, subsection G of the FCT IRS Act of 2015. The Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Abdullahi Atta, also stressed that the service has generated over 1 million unique identification numbers for individuals and is currently in the process of registering other taxpayers and agents.
Our target revenue for 2018, we targeted to make 146 billion for 2018. And this is only in the area of tax and related tax matters.
Mr. Atta also revealed that the service has generated a total of 19.6 billion naira from the month of January to March 2018, while regretting that the first month he assumed office, 50% of the tax paid went to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. He used the occasion to state that the service will soon commence sending bulk text messages and emails to confirm the validation of the taxpayers' registration details in the Federal Capital Territory. He added that the service will also start registering enterprises, sole proprietors, and partnership establishments.
So far, we have generated over 1 million unique taxpayer identification numbers for individuals and currently in the process of registering other taxpayers and agents. In the next few days, we shall be sending bulk text messages and emails confirming the validation of the taxpayer registration details.
While commenting on alleged double taxation in the FCT, the chairman affirmed that absence of a regulation gave room to multiple taxation in the past, which is being addressed by the new act. He stressed that the new act intends to have unified tax collection system which will enable the streamlining of taxation services for relevant authorities. Responding on tenement rate issues, the FCT IRS Secretary Harisu Umar noted that it has been a controversial issue in the FCT, submitting that it requires more of a political solution than a legal one.
The Constitution says they cannot do that until there is an act of the House of Assembly that defines the mode of assessment, collection, and enforcement of the rates.
Deposit money banks are expected to report significantly lower profits in their first quarter financial results, which are due this week, as a new reporting standard introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria becomes effective. For this and more on Business News, let's join Osawaname Bisbe.
Deposit money banks are expected to report significantly lower profits in their first quarter financial results, which are due this week, as a new reporting standard introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria becomes effective. The new regime, called the International Financial Reporting Standard 9, among several requirements, mandates banks to make further disclosures on the state of their loan portfolios. This new regime, according to financial accounting and banking experts, will lead to a significant decline in the profits of the banks. The CBN introduced the IFRS 9 on January 1, 2018, and for the first time in the history of Nigerian banks, the lenders will be using the new accounting standard to report their first quarter financial results this month. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Joint Tax Board, and the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria have entered into a partnership to improve the level of voluntary tax compliance by operators in the micro, small and medium enterprises sector. The collaboration was sealed during a meeting that attracted key players in the MSME sector. A statement on Sunday quoted the Executive Chairman, FIRS, and Chairman, JTB, Mr. Babatunde Fowler, to have said the need to increase the level of tax compliance among the MSMEs became imperative as they were the engine of economic growth. The move is also part of measures aimed at improving the country's tax to gross domestic product ratio, which at 6% is currently one of the lowest in the world.
The federal government has denied media reports that ministers who were invited to the U.S.-Nigeria Investment Summit in Washington, D.C. on 19th of April 2018 shunned the forum. In a statement issued in London Monday by the media advisor to the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, Lai said most of the ministers who were slated to attend the event were either not invited or were not in Washington, D.C. at the time. Hence, the insinuation that some ministers collected extra codes without attending the forum is baseless. He said the Minister of Agriculture, Power, Works and Housing, and Budget and National Planning did not get any invitation from the organizers, even though they were listed among those who were expected to attend. Alhaji Lai said the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, who was invited, was with the President at the Commonwealth Head of Government meeting in London at the time of the summit, while the Minister of Finance, who was in Washington, D.C. at the time, was there purposely to attend the 2018 spring meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. He said though he was invited to the forum, he wrote back to inform the organizers that he will not be able to make the trip due to conflicting schedules. Members of the House of Representatives Tuesday expressed anger over the withdrawal of $496 million for the purchase of military aircraft by the presidency. The lawmakers were reacting to a letter sent to the House by President Muhammadu Buhari, which stated that the funds were withdrawn in anticipation of the National Assembly's approval. National Assembly's correspondent Charity Tanko has more.
Tuesday plenary witnessed an outreach from lawmakers at the Green Chambers over a correspondence from the president that a sum of $460 million was withdrawn as part of the $1 billion approved by the National Executive Council for the purchase of military hardware. President Buhari in the letter said the council had given an anticipatory approval for the withdrawal of the money. Before the Speaker, Yakubu Dogorakul, finished reading the letter, Representative Kingsley Chenda from Rivers State raised the point of order that the President has no right to make such withdrawal without approval of the National Assembly.
In the expectation that the National Assembly would have no objection to the purchase of these highly specialized aircraft, which is critical to national security, granted anticipatory approval for the release of $496,374,470 This was paid directly to the Treasury of the United States government.
A constitutional infraction as serious as expenditure without the National Assembly clearly runs foul of this Constitution and is an impeachable offense.
Other lawmakers who spoke in support of the motion said the president should be made to give a detailed explanation of how the money was spent.
At least there was an offer made by the U.S. government. At that point, why was that letter not sent to this House? And secondly, this is a government-to-government transaction. Are they telling us the U.S. Congress is aware of this? And Mr. Speaker, to just add to what Honorable Chinda said, Chuba Okadigbo was removed for anticipatory approval.
We should be mindful of how we begin to easily throw support towards what we believe is illegal. And we cannot place legality upon illegality. If the process is wrong, the process is wrong.
We are very right in our indignation. Everything in that letter is something that can instigate anger. There is no doubt about that.
The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has expressed optimism that the economy can grow to a remarkable level if the country implements its plans diligently. For this and more on Business News, let's join Lulu Odu.
The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has expressed confidence that if the country implements its plans diligently, it can grow the economy to desirable levels. Adeosun made the remark in a joint press conference by the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, at the Nigerian office of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. On debt rebalancing, Adeosun emphasized that at the takeoff of this administration, 80% of the country's debt was short-dated with a tenure of 2 years or less. She said most of what was owed was domestic and the interest rate was high as 19 to 20%. What the MO is paying is around 13% because of restructured portfolio. She noted that the Nigerian government is borrowing heavily and coming up of the domestic market was for the banks to be able to lend to the real sector. U.S. oil producers are reaping the benefits of OPEC's efforts to balance the crude market by flooding Europe with a record amount of crude hurting traditional supplies such as Nigeria. Russia paired with the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries last year in cutting oil output jointly by 1.8 million barrels per day. A deal they say has largely rebalanced the market and one that has helped alleviate benchmark Brent prices close to 4-year highs. U.S. oil output is expected to hit 10.7 million per barrel this year, rivaling that of top producers Russia and Saudi Arabia in April. U.S. supplies to Europe are set to reach an all-time high of roughly 550,000 barrels per day. The World Bank said Nigerians living abroad sent home $22 billion in 2017, the highest in the sub-Saharan region and the 5th highest in the world. This represents 10% increase when compared to the $19.64 billion sent home in 2016. The amount sent home by Nigerians in diaspora represent the highest in the sub-Saharan Africa region, followed by Senegal and Ghana with $2.2 billion each for the year. The World Bank stated this in a report titled Migration and Development Brief According to the report, remittances to low and middle-income countries rose by 8.5% from $429 billion in 2016 to $466 billion in 2017, while global remittances appreciated by 7.0% to $613 billion in 2017 from $573 billion in 2016. India emerged top remittance recipients with $69 billion, followed by China with $64 billion, the Philippines $33 billion, Mexico $31 billion, Nigeria $22 billion, and Egypt with $20 billion.
President Muhammadu Buhari says the federal government has set a target of increasing the identity database of Nigerians from 28 million to 70 million. For this and more, let's join Catherine Ehemese.
President Muhammadu Buhari has announced on Tuesday that the federal government has a target of increasing the identity database of Nigerians from 28 million to 70 million. According to Buhari, the harmonization of identity schemes in the country by the National Identity Management Commission has led to a significant increase in the database of citizens across the country, adding that the government had a target of growing the figure to 70 million by December 2019. The president, who stated this as is declared open the 4th International Annual Meeting of the ID for Africa 2018 movement in Abuja, stressed the importance of the confidentiality of data inherent in the identity management system. The president's speech was read at the event by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bas Mustafa. Buhari told participants at the conference that the federal government had recognized the need to have a single identification number system for Nigerian citizens. The Federal Inland Revenue Service generated a total of 1.17 trillion naira in the first quarter of this year from the collection of various taxes. This was a significant rise over the 778.19 billion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2017. According to a letter written by the executive chairman of the FIRS, Tunde Fowler, to the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, the amount realized in the first quarter of 2018 is 393.39 billion naira, more than what was generated in the first 3 months of 2017. In the letter entitled Brief on Revenue Projections Performance for the period January to March 2018, Fowler stated that the analysis shows that they have so far collected a sum of over 1 trillion naira for January to March 2018, which is 69.5% of the total target to date. Reports say that though the amnesty declared for taxpayers to regularize their tax status by paying all outstanding taxes and be free from prosecution and payment of interest under the Voluntary Income and Asset Declaration Scheme might have led to more taxpayers coming forward to pay, the scheme was not recorded to have contributed anything to the declared amount. The Central Bank of Nigeria has stepped into the interbank sector of the foreign exchange market yet again, intervening in the wholesale segment and other sectors of the market to the tune of $210 million. This came just as the naira closed at 363 per United States dollar at the parallel market on Tuesday, the same rate it closed on Monday. The naira has been 363 naira per dollar for some days. Figures released by the bank on Tuesday revealed that out of the $210 million, the wholesale sector of the market got an injection of $100 million, just as the small and medium-scale enterprises and invisible sectors each received $55 million. Okorafor, while commending the role of every player in the market, said the CBN was ready to inject funds into the market whenever and however necessary in order to maintain market stability as well as sustain the financial system. Speaking further, Okorafor said the country's reserve continued to enjoy accretion, adding that the present reserve status at the bank meant the CBN was capable of sustaining foreign exchange liquidity in the system. The CBN, in its last intervention on Friday, injected a sum of $396.18 million into the retail secondary market intervention sales.
Deliberations on the request of President Muhammadu Buhari that the House of Representatives includes the sum of $496 million in the 2018 appropriation bill for the purchase of Super Tucano aircrafts from the United States government was inconclusive. National Assembly's correspondent Charity Tanko has this report.
Earlier this week, at plenary, the House of Representatives received a correspondence from President Muhammadu Buhari requesting the House to include the sum of $496 million which the federal government deposited for the purchase of military aircraft in the 2018 appropriation bill as supplementary budget. During the debate, lawmakers expressed displeasure that the money was withdrawn from the excess crude account without appropriation by the National Assembly. At plenary Thursday, House Majority Leader moved a motion requesting that the said amount of money be included in the 2018 appropriation bill as supplementary budget. In their contributions, lawmakers questioned the validity of the letter saying the president ought to have sent it as an executive bill and not a letter. Other lawmakers argued that the House should set aside the manner at which the communication came and consider the letter due to the urgency of what it intends to address. The House thereafter referred the matter to the House Committee on Rules and Business to find out if there were incidences where the President authorized the withdrawal of such amount of money without the approval of the National Assembly.
And Nigeria is set to adopt African standards on sugar products as well as develop Nigeria's industrial standards. Oluwatoyin Yusuf has this and more on Business News.
Nigeria is set to adopt African standards on sugar and sugar products as well as develop Nigerian Industrial Standards (NIS) for glucose and sucrose. To this end, a technical committee meeting on sugar and sugar products has been held at the Standard Organization of Nigeria (SON) operational headquarters in Lekki, Lagos, recently to consider the adoption of some African standards under the auspices of African Organization for Standardization and the development of other Nigerian industrial standards. At the meeting, the Director General of SON, Mr. Oshita Aboloma, said the current trends in the processing of sugar has necessitated the elaboration of new standards because the quality of raw materials along the food value chain, the technical procedures and the handling determines to a large extent as well as guarantees the quality of the finished product. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has rolled out a tougher sanctions regime for anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism, which stipulates fines on banks, their debtors, and other key officials for 48 money laundering infractions. The new regime is an improvement on existing regime which only stipulates fines against financial institutions for money laundering infractions. The new regime was also developed to ensure that Nigerians' compliance with Financial Action Task Force Recommendation 35, which states countries should ensure that there is a range of effective, proportionate, and dissuasive sanctions, whether criminal, civil, or administrative, available to deal with natural or legal persons covered by Recommendations 6 and 8 to 23 that fail to comply with AML-CFT requirements. Sanctions should be applicable not only to financial institutions and DNFBPs, but also to their directors and senior management. The Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria (SMEDAN) has said it has trained 576 prison inmates since 2009, noting that 146 of those released have since started their own businesses. Lagos State Coordinator of SMEDAN, Mr. Yinka Fisher, who disclosed this, also said that a new set of 52 prison inmates are set to be equipped this year with entrepreneurial skill aimed at improving their lives after their incarceration. According to him, the training will hold from May to December at the Kirikiri and Ikoyi prisons for both male and female inmates. He said the empowerment program to be done in collaboration with the Nigerian Prison Service, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, and Covenant University would assist the inmates to reintegrate successfully into the society after prison, become self-reliant and live a productive life.
And for Business News Friday, our correspondent is standing by.
After 2 days of disagreement between the 36 state commissioners for finance and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation over alleged revenue underpayments, the Federation Account Allocation Committee finally distributed the sum of 626.82 billion naira to the 3 tiers of government on Thursday. The allocation, which was supposed to have been done on Tuesday, was delayed following claims that the NNPC underpaid about 12 billion naira into the coffers of the government. But at the reconvened meeting on Thursday held at the headquarters of the Ministry of Finance, the committee agreed to share 626.82 billion naira for the month of March. This, according to the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, is to allow the 3 tiers of government to pay workers' salary before the end of this month, while reconciliation with the corporation is ongoing. Addressing journalists shortly after the meeting, the AGF put the gross statutory revenue for the month of March at 480.59 billion naira.
Distribution to the 3 tiers of government is 564,299,000,000. There is also distribution of 62,528,000,000 from forex equalization account, which beefed up the figure, the total figure for distribution this month to 626,827,000,000, as against the total figure distributed in the previous month of 647,390,000,000 naira. The balance in the excess crude account as at 24th April 2018 is $1,830,000,000. $1,830,000,000. There is also excess PPT on the same date, that is 24th of April 2018, which stood at $133 million.
And that has been the Business News Summary on Independent Television Abuja. Many thanks for staying with us. I am Nkiru Obuli. Do enjoy the rest of the day.